guess
All
that's
right. So we are with Sam today, and well, I am with you, Sam, and you are from Mellow, and I already have amazing things to say about it, but we'll see how mellow I am in the podcast.
love that. Love that. Thanks for the opportunity, to be on here. And as I
Pleasure.
said, super excited to share, our mission and everything else. And yeah, there's lots to talk about.
There is lots to talk about. So I guess let's get started with, why Mellow? What brought you to this point to have to create, not have to, but want to create
Yeah.
an amazing drink? And what sort of, messages, history and events created and brought you to this point?
Yeah, cool. So my story pretty much spans about 10 years ago now, where I was living in Sydney. Um, you know, always worked for myself. So, we lived in the Northern Beaches when we are there, living a busy life, managing a few businesses. And then I became a new dad as well. So becoming a new father and stuff, obviously it upstirs a few emotions.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, look, just also loving life while I was there. So like, we're busy, my wife and I, we're busy working away. We always keep, our schedules never sort of quiet. We like to get out and about and stuff like that. And yeah, what I didn't really realize was that it was nice being busy, and nice being out there enjoying life. But I didn't realize that I was sort of pushing myself a little bit too much, even though pushing yourself with like having so much fun.
yeah.
I was pushing myself a little bit too much. So it came to one day in my life. My background's actually commercial property, so it's very different to what
Mm,
I'm in now. This is like my first drinks company I've started.
yeah.
Um, and my background in property was quite a serious nature, so you're always dressed up smartly, we're in these meetings, we're talking about commercial property developments and assets and sales and all that sort of stuff. So it was a very sort of structured sort of environment to be in. And when I say you don't have ways to express yourself as much, it's sort of that is true. You're sitting there doing these deals and it's all serious and high level. Um, Even so, a lot of people in that industry like to go out and they would express themselves more through, drinking and partying and all that sort of jazz, which wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
That was that. So at the time, I had my own property agency in Sydney, and then me and my wife loved coffee so much we thought we'd start a cafe.
Mm,
And we're in like our mid-20s at the time. And yeah, I remember going back home from the cafe and had about half an hour up my sleeve. And I thought, you know what, I'll get out for a quick surf just to freshen up. So
mhm.
got my board, went for a surf, and then came back in. And yeah, when I remember walking up the beach, and then my heart just started beating out of my chest like crazy. And I started shallow breathing. My throat almost started closing up. It got quite scary.
Mm,
Uh, and I thought I was dead set having a heart attack. So I didn't really know what was going on. All my extremities went as well. So like losing feeling in my fingers.
mm.
And, when you get the wobbly legs as well, it was really scary. So I rushed inside, saw my wife, and she's like, look, I'm pretty sure you're not having a heart attack. Just sit down and relax. And like leading up to that day, there was, long hours at the cafe, things going on with work, nothing out of the blue that I would normally manage.
Mm,
But for some reason, it just got to this point. So I remember sitting down, trying to deep breathe, but, breathing through my mouth, like trying to slow everything down.
mm.
And then fortunately, after an hour, it subsided and everything sort of just subsided and went away.
Yeah.
And yeah, that night I was just freaked out. I was like, what's wrong with me? Being a new father as well, the last thing you want to do is like, die when you're 25
Well,
and you've got
totally.
like a baby relying on you. I'm a real provider.
Yeah.
It's my role. That's what I do. I love doing it for my family and everything else. And yeah, I just remember being online. I booked in with the doctors the following day. I went and saw them, and then they hooked me up on the ECG machine. And I was thinking the worst, like, yep, dead set, my heart's no good. And
Yeah.
I remember laying there, and he's like, look, you're fit and healthy. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. And I
Yeah.
remember him saying, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, how is that true? Like, how can you tell me there's nothing wrong with me when I've been through this series of events? I pretty much felt like I was going to die the day before. I said, what the heck's going on? Like, this is bullshit. Like, I need some closure.
Mm.
And he's like, oh, it's just a panic attack you had. It's just anxiety.
Just.
And like for me, that was my second stage with anxiety. I had anxiety come up at school in high school, only for a very short time.
Yeah.
But in high school, I didn't really have the emotional ability to be able to deal with it. I'd just go out with the boys, we'd have fun, would play a bit of footy growing up, go surfing, like just keep busy. So when I was in high school, I didn't really have the ability to be able to sit down and be like, well, why is this happening? What am I doing then? So it wasn't until that moment in my life I get delivered that news from the doctor, like, you're sweet. And in one mind, I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. So I said to him, what are my options? And he goes, here's some antidepressants. And he was want to antidepressant me. And I was like, okay, what else are my options? And he's like, go and see a psychologist.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there in that moment again going, look, I've got nothing against antidepressants, by the way. Like I know people have been on them and have gone through amazing things, anti-anxiety medication, but they only get through that with the plan. But
Mm.
what I know is when you take medication like that, it stops you from feeling any feelings.
Mhm.
When we can't feel, we can't heal. It takes way longer to heal. And
Mm.
what happens, people in my family as well, my mother-in-law in particular is on a anti-anxiety medication. She's been on it for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I just recently said to her this year, I said, look, if you want to get off them, I'm happy to help, like hold a safe space for you. And then we can get whatever help we need to help you come off these slowly. You can't go off it cold turkey. But I know that with her, she's scared of feeling that anxious feeling again. So when you start fearing it, it's like,
Mm.
why not just have this pill? I don't want to feel like that. But
Yeah.
what you don't know is that slowly that hole is getting dug deeper because you're relying on medication to get through the day and everything else. So going back to that story, that didn't make sense to me. It was like literally within after my ECG, like 4 minutes, here's the medication. And I'm like, oh, come on, what else is there? And then he goes, go and see a psychologist. So I was like, okay, well, mid-20s, it's pretty full on to put yourself out there going back 10 years ago now. It's good now because a lot more people are seeking help and talking to people, which I think is like absolutely amazing.
Great.
But rewind back then, it was sort of like, yeah, like I'm putting myself out there being like mid-20s to talk to a psychologist about having anxiety.
Mm.
So the next day rolls through. I get an appointment with a psychologist. From the day of having the panic attack, every single day I had a panic attack in the afternoon without fail. It just didn't stop. 2:30, bang, it hits me. I've got to lay down on the couch. I'm just like this, just breathing, trying to breathe, can't control my body, and then it just wears off. And it was like the scariest thought was like, I can't control my body. I can't control my mind.
Mm.
And when you have that level of anxiety, you identify with it real fast.
Yeah.
So it's like you become it, you fear it, and then you are very easily influenced. So your mind goes, shit, what if I go crazy? What happens if it gets worse? You
Yeah.
start thinking the worst all the time, right? So I met the psychologist. I remember walking up to this old school, two-story walk up in DY, and went and saw this old dude up there. And I sat down with him. And even before that, I was like, I wasn't too sure about it anyway, putting
Mm.
myself out there, don't know this person from a bar of soap, just got recommended it to him from the doctor. And I walked up there, sat down with him, and straight away I was like, oh no, what am I doing? I probably shouldn't be here. It was just weird, these thoughts going through my mind, right?
Yeah.
And he asked me 4 questions, right? First one was, have you been addicted to drugs and alcohol before? And I said, nah, all good there. He said, how's the relationship with your family? And I said, yep, love my mum and dad. They're not together, but, all good there as well. He said, generally, how's your health? How's your lifestyle? And I said, look, I eat basically mostly organic. I active, surf, skate, work, all the rest. And then the fourth question was, have you ever thought about committing suicide before?
Mm.
I just sat there going, wow, okay,
Wait,
sweet.
yeah. Mm.
This is a great way to start my session, man. Great advice. So even after that, it just sort of stirred me up. I was like, look, I left after that. I was like, look, thanks for your time. I'll pay you for the session. No worries. But I just don't feel like this is right for me. He just wasn't the right fit for me.
Fine.
Um, and again, I just left with like, what's the hope here? Like, how am I going to get better? And these
Mm.
things just happen every day. So I'm like, well, I've got to go now and actually work it out for myself. And I made a vow to myself then. I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can, keep going until I find a cure.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find a natural cure as well. I didn't want to go near the medication.
Mm.
So fast forward about 2 months, again, working multiple, like the two businesses, turning up like a smile on my face. You would have no idea, right? And this is the scariest thing as well that I find now. I'm just like, it shouldn't be like this.
No.
Like, what's the point in having a smile on our dial, having podcasts like this, getting on social media, everything's all good and great when we know that some people are struggling inside. And it's just horrible that we feel we have to like suffer in silence, I say as well.
Mm.
There's so much power in expressing yourself. And when we express ourselves this way as well and be true about ourselves and talk authentically, it doesn't come from like a victim mindset either. That's where I think that problem lies. People go, if I go online and talk about my anxiety, I don't want people to pity me, or it makes me look weak.
Yep.
And it's like, actually, no, it doesn't. It does like the complete opposite. And you'll be amazed by the amount of support that people get behind you. And when you find that, you almost feel like this like layer of, heaviness just falls off your shoulder. And you're like, shit, I can be myself.
Mm.
Be yourself. People like to see people that are so-called confident online. I think it's so funny. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's because you got no nerves. Like, you're just being yourself. You're not nervous about saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing online. It's just, well, being myself. It's easy.
Totally. And there's no front, there's no other hats, there's no other
Ah,
roles, there's no
no,
fakeness at
there's
all. And
not.
that's how authenticity should be.
And we
And
all go through this like guide of getting to that point of being able to be ourselves. It's not easy to be authentic online either.
it's
You
not,
know,
it's scary.
I did it for a long time, wearing the flash suits and, being the businessman to like landing here in like the hills of Byron and like having the drinks business, it's like, I didn't think at all I'd be in this industry either, in the drinks industry or like the mental health industry as well. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's a
Needed.
part.
It's so needed. So, I think in my practice as a naturopath, I've seen a huge rise in mental health concerns in the last 2 years. COVID seemed to just escalate everything to a degree that now it was becoming more noticeable within, like a 50% shift. And it was just really scary. So, there's a lot been and spoken and even podcasts that I've had with people since in the mental health space, that mental health had been so separated from physical health when they're both the same. It's all together, and it seems to be
So we're so connected. I've been listening to some Gabor Mate lately, right? I hope I pronounced that right. And he
Mm.
was even talking about like the immune system and how
Yeah,
the immune system is so connected to the emotional system. What
yeah.
we find out after the studies is they're one.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So you can go through a
Everything talks,
scenario. We're
everything
all one.
together. But yet we sort of separate the body from like here down to there within the mental health, and even aspects of body hears and speaks and stores, and so we store emotions and therefore cause and create disease from that as well. And anxiety, and I myself have had anxiety attacks in the past, and they are like, I remember my husband putting me into a bath in the middle of an anxiety attack and having to sing to me to make sure that I felt like I wasn't going to die. Like it is horrible. And so I feel so much for what you went through, especially being in the state that like just coming out of a surf, just feeling like you just had to chill out and like you love what you're doing and you're doing like happy, and it can hit you in moments like that where you're like, why did it hit me now? There's no direct correlation to an event. It's not like I had a trauma and then something happened, but it's that body's holding on and build up that's been years and years in the making. Um,
Well, it's funny you said that because it was so many years before the event for it
mm,
to be at that point. And
mm,
I worked it out. Fast forward, me getting to a point where I managed to work everything out. I worked with a neuroscientist who studied at the Auckland University in New Zealand. He was sort of
mm,
through a family friend, and
mm,
he started explaining how the anxiety feedback loop works. And he's like, literally, you've got thoughts, and with those thoughts, you choose to decide to actually attach massive feelings to those thoughts, and
mm,
those feelings are so big, they give you a full body reaction. He's
yeah.
like, it's that simple.
Mm,
So I said to
mm,
him, well, how do we solve it? And he goes, well, it comes back to not giving these thoughts so much importance. He's
Yeah.
like, that's the only thing you can do. You can't control what you think. No one can, right? But you can choose how much importance you give to that thought. And
Yeah.
when you learn that you can control your body, and it wasn't until I bumped into a pharmacist and he introduced me to L-theanine a
Mm.
whole year and a half later, and I started dosing it, that I
Mm.
started full sense of calm. The first time I took it, within 45 minutes, I got this full sense of calm over my body that I
Mm.
first time in a year and a half feeling like that. And then that panic attack that day, I still had it, but it wasn't as strong. So that gave me enough space
Yeah.
to be able to say, hey, Sam, you can control your body.
Mm.
Me
Mm.
back out to say, yeah, sure, I can. Yeah, it's not me going crazy.
Yeah.
There's a bit of an imbalance with how I give these thoughts so much importance that
Yeah.
then creates the feelings that feed the feedback loop. So I
Exactly.
gave myself that space, and I worked with the with the neuroscientist, and we worked out that it wasn't my whole fear went right back until I was in high school. My mum got diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's still around today, and like she's doing great, you know. But being told that your mum's going to die when you're like 16, like just tore my world apart, you know. And again, I didn't have the tools to deal with it, you
Yeah.
know, and she didn't have the tools to deal with it either. You know, I
No.
couldn't support from mum or dad. They're both so busy and strung out going to radiation appointments in town, and mum coming home to sleep all day. So
Mm.
it's no one to turn to.
Yeah.
So what do? You just chuck it back in your brain, dig it down, put a lid on it, and just move forward.
Yeah.
And it was those emotions that were deep down that then decided to show themselves when, I became a new father in my mid-20s, running these businesses, being busy, living life, probably having a few too many coffees every day as well. And then bang, it opened up.
Yeah.
So, this year's the first year of my life that I'm actually going back and going deeper, and looking at my actual birth and my childhood and working on my own. I don't know if I call it trauma. I mean, it could be called traumas, like my own traumas, like what I went through. Basically, I did
Mm.
my first energy healing this year, and hey, I think that's what you do when you move to Byron. But it was like amazing, like next level. And I had to chat to my mum, and I was like, they asked me like, what was your birth like? And I was born a month early. I was put in an incubator. Then I got a chest infection. So the doctor decided to give me a lumbar puncture all within the first 2 weeks of being born. And like, you don't think much of that, right? When you're like in your teenage years, early 20s, like whatever, we're just living life, all good. And I'm just like, shit. Like, I've got kids now. I could never imagine that. Imagine what those bodies go through to that. So it's like you start working it out. And yeah, it's super, super interesting,
It
to look.
is.
I think we can learn a lot by just asking questions to our parents or sort of working it out ourselves. Not from a point again of being like a victim mindset, by being like, oh, that now makes sense. Now I know that the reason why these things happen in my life. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And it's discovery in that way. And because it's so complex, we have to sort of pull back the layers, that onion, and know where it sort of originated from if we can, or know where to go from there, and then build tools on top of that. And things like L-theanine, which we'll sort of, get to, and the purpose. And I just love the branding and everything around the cans that you've created, and the actual taste of the product as well, and the ingredients within. But I
thank
think that but yeah, L-theanine and other things that we can be using are bridges, as you said. They're things to give space to
you.
then
Yeah,
be able to create and support the body and have confidence around behaviors and confidence back in the body again, so you can then branch out and do that. Because with anxiety comes so much of, for a lot of people, social anxiety as well, where you don't feel like confident or safe in many environments because you're constantly nervous system hyperactive, and your body is trying to protect itself in a non-safe environment. So it's hard to step out of that without assistance. And if it can be as easy as, or as simple as, something that tastes good, that looks good, and is a social supporter, in that you can take it to a barbecue or you can feel good having it, then why not? So there's so many different bridges that we can go towards. But the sad thing is that people in the state of that don't know where to go to, and it's even harder to find that in that current state, which is
100%,
really
100%. Like you try to find like help when you go into like Dr. Google. and it just gives you way more anxiety. Like my number one rule is don't Google stuff, eh?
No, no,
You
I
know,
can tell
stay right
I
away from
spend
it,
my
eh?
time
If
on
you've got
TikTok.
anxiety tendencies, just don't even use it at all. Stay away from it. The
Yeah,
worst. The amount of
yeah,
times I thought I had brain cancer from Google.
yeah.
Jesus Christ. World of tomatoes.
Everything leads to that.
Far out. Just the worst case scenarios straight away.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the sad thing that I found, like the actual truth of it was you go
Mm,
to these so-called like professionals,
yeah.
and that's the support that we've built as a nation to help people in need.
Yeah.
And it's like such a broken system. It's like far out, and and not until you like meet the right person or go through a few failed appointments with some people that you get recommended to, until you could find the right person, because there are amazing practitioners out there. I'm not saying there's not, but the general public, when you're trying to find someone and when
It's
you're
hard to
like feeling
find.
like that, last thing you want to do is like go on this big research tangent. You're just trying to get through your day.
Simple
Um,
information.
that was the main thing for us. We're like, look, let's create a drink that is going to be accessible to everyone. You
Mm,
know, it's going to be cost effective, so everyone can drink it all the time. It's
mm,
going to have the highest dose of L-theanine possible,
mm.
uh, and then also have no sugar and absolutely no stimulants.
Yeah.
Because even me, like I don't drink coffee now.
Yep.
Like I'm 6'3", and if I have a coffee, I'll be shaking like to bits. It's just like I just know that with my constitution and what I've been through, it's just something I don't have. You know, I'll
Yeah.
go have a fancy decaf or something to like feel like I fit in. Nah, I'm on the chais now. I love chai, but like this is the thing. This is the thing. For me, I know having stimulants when you have been through anxiety or you're in a stressful period, it just does zero for you. It does nothing for you. And this is again, you know, the age we live in. It's like, how we train, how we consume products, how we eat, how we live our life.
Yeah.
It's just been marketed into us to be like more, 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 faster, 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 to create that sense of, wow, what are they doing? Like grabbing our attention in some cases, right? How they market it and everything else. But like look at, training and stuff like that. I've done high intensity training, and high
Mm,
intensity training is good as
mm.
long as you're in the right place.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time they don't talk about that, right? So, you're anxious and you're stressed. Okay, let's go and, smash this out. And what are we going to do? Stress ourselves out more. That's great. you
Yeah.
know, why don't we go and have some coffee today? Why don't we go out and party with our mates and get on, some alcohol, whatever, like for us, it's about like saying you can still do all that. We're not saying you can't, but you've got to be really good at doing these self micro assessments, I call them,
Yeah.
and be real honest with yourself. How do you feel after that? Do you feel good or bad? If you feel
Yeah.
good, hey, you can sustain it, right? Nothing's sustainable long term, as we know, unless it's healthy for you. But I
Yeah.
know from a point of view of not having caffeine and not having stimulants, it's way more sustainable, and you actually then find a way to be able to find your own inner energy as well. Because I feel like there's a lot of fabricated energy out there at the moment,
I
so
totally
that
agree.
you feel good and everything else. So
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. And it's teaching body awareness. We're taught through marketing, media, and the current medical system to be unawares of our body because we're trusting in another system. And
I
it's
never
some,
ever.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, I'm like, if you don't know your body, like
yeah.
it's like you need to be in tune.
But it's
And if
scary.
you can't be in tune, then just slow the hell down.
Exactly.
Take
Yeah,
some time out, go walk outside for 5 minutes, tune in with your body. Because
yeah,
we live in a fast-paced age today,
we do.
um, and
We do.
it's only going to become faster and faster. Technology is developing. We learn to live with it. But
Yeah,
as we all know, these are all feeding the external parts of our body. And, what a lot of people don't focus on is feeding the internal parts of our body. So whatever goal you want, right? Whether it's a health goal, a financial goal, a relationship goal, whatever it may be, if you don't focus on working on the internal self first,
mm,
you'll get there and you won't feel as satisfied as what you think you're going to feel when you get there, if you know what I mean. So it's like
exactly.
this
It's
internal
about
stuff
the
is
journey, really.
100%. And nothing worse like getting there and being
Yeah.
like, what am I
Oh,
still for? And I've gotten here. Like, what's going on? You're like more confused. It's like
yeah.
you might be better to fail and then be like, oh, I failed, whatever.
Yeah, now I have to do it again.
Back
Oh,
to it.
okay.
All good. No worries. Try again. Give it another crack. It's
Yeah.
like fuck.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that, yeah, it's such a wise thing to say in that yeah, you realize when you get to the end of a goal that you're like, well, I had more fun doing this than I actually am at the completion point, and
100%.
yeah,
100%.
so much more fun. But so, with the marketing, obviously it interests me, and for those that are going to follow on video, but the color that obviously this is the watermelon and lychee that I've got here. But I feel that there is, like as you say, the bioavailability of the L-theanine, which is an important part. And we use it in clinic, in compounding, but it's beautiful to have the awareness, So one of the most important things I see with the health industry and the correct health industry, giving correct information is the fact that the general public doesn't know about these things in the way that they should be utilized and where they can be seen to be used. Like you said earlier, like there's no tool network of what we can go towards if we feel like shit.
Yeah.
So, this gives education. So clients and people, general public know, oh, L-theanine. Wow. Well, that will chill me out. And that's so
Yeah.
simple. It's just like
It's
boom,
so
boom.
simple. It's so
Yeah.
simple. And I challenge anyone to go to their like local chemist and ask if they stock L-theanine. And I bet you that like a real high chance to be like Althea what? Like
Yes.
that's what happened to me. It still happens today. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's building up, right? More people are starting to stock it, but the general, pharmacy industry or the network of pharmacies, they have no idea. And the reason why they don't like it is because it works so well,
Yeah.
and it's giving people another option than medication. You know what I mean? Being supported, right? We can use this.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea with the branding and stuff like that was, color is energy. So when I meditate and if I get into like a deep state, I will see colors and stuff, and I
It's
find
beautiful.
that super fascinating.
Mm.
But yeah, color is energy, and energy is all around us, right? So that's where we came up with the idea of having the colors on the can, and we thought, well, let's utilize the colors from the fruit that we're using in the drinks, and then into the design of the can as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, we want it to be really sort of unique looking, but in a way of like being calm when you look at it as well. Hence why
Oh,
I use X and the
absolutely.
colors as well.
Yeah,
So
swirls, circles. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful way of looking at it. And again, like I said, it makes you feel calm. Can of
yeah,
calm. It's
yeah,
just very beautiful and well designed product. It tastes good. I always do my due diligence of checks on ingredient lists, and I love monk fruit, and I use monk fruit in so many of my combinations here and at home in cooking, and I really do love it. And yeah, so talk to me about, I guess flavors and what it looks like for the brand at the moment with what expanse and where you're looking to go towards.
definitely. So at the moment, we've got four flavors. So we've got the watermelon lychee,
Yeah,
the pineapple lime, peach and ginger, and then our new flavor, raspberry and lemon.
beautiful.
Um, with the drinks, the ingredients are 98% Australian ingredients as well. So we know
Mm.
every single person we get our ingredients from, and that was my biggest thing as well. I eat full organic at home. I go to the farmers markets. I drink these drinks. My kids drink these drinks. So I'm really strict on what we're using in the drinks as well. The only thing that comes from overseas is the L-theanine we use, and we buy that from Japan.
Yeah,
As we all know, the Japanese make the best green tea in the world, and and we buy a fermented product as well. So being fermented, it means it's just way more bioavailable, but it goes through the natural wash system rather than some L-theanines are produced in a lab. This is done naturally as well, which is even better. So not only does it absorb way quicker, it's just way more natural as well. So we can call our product 100% natural, which is a big thing for us as well.
that's really good.
Um, yeah, what's on the plan for us? Wow. Where do I start? We've just launched something called the Mind Wellness Club. And this is like an online platform that we're giving out free resource to help support people that are going through stress or anxiety just in general as well.
Mm.
We've got a number of events planned as well for the end of the year. We looking at other products to do to help calm people down as well. So our whole focus is like expanding the product range to help calm
Yeah,
the body, basically
yeah,
calm them.
yeah.
Um,
I love
but
that.
yeah, the Mind Wellness Club's a big focus for us this year. We're looking to work with schools.
Yeah,
We're looking to work with, hospitals and other sort of government agencies as well, just to provide the awareness and the support through that. But just generally, we want a place for people to be able to go. And I want people to like visit the Instagram or visit our website and know that like I'm sitting behind it, you
yeah,
know. the head office in my garage at home. You know, there's my wife and I that back the brand. We've got a mate who's a designer, and we've got our warehouse in Sydney that does all the shipping for us. You know, and we make the drinks there as well. But
Yeah.
that's us. So it's like
Yeah.
we want people to know that we're not this massive multinational company that, you know, you'll never talk to the owner, me, you'll never talk to anyone in the company that actually cares about making a difference.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I care about this so much. And if I can just help one person that has gone through what I've gone through or something similar, feel like they belong or feel like it's normal to go through this, that just makes my day. So that's my like number one focus with this, is to like normalize the conversation around mental health and provide a space where people can come online and send a message knowing that I'll get straight back to them or have questions or come to one of our events and be like, well, you know, Sam's been through anxiety, but he's not crippled by it. He's not sitting inside. Like, we're out still living life, but in a way where if we're going out to go to a party, you know, I'm having mellows. I don't drink alcohol. You know what I mean? It's like we can still live life to the fullest, but even more, you know, with having the support. So
Yeah.
that's our main focus, is just to build that community and focus on that as much as possible.
Yeah, which is, it's just inspirational. And I this is why I love my job so much, and I love meeting people in these platforms as well. And you know, I can say this for certain, that people listening to this podcast, you will help more than one person. Just be aware of the fact that anxiety is okay, is normal. But it's just a subsequent of what we've been through or what our environment currently has for us. And just
100%.
knowing that.
100%. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. And like for me, anxiety is a word that's been made up by the medical industry to label people so they feel sick, to then medicate them. If you are feeling like you've got anxiety, or so-called the word anxiety, you just feel anxious, and you may be feeling anxious a lot more than who you see to be normal around you. But that's totally fine. It's a natural human emotion. It's like feeling angry or feeling love. You
Mm.
just feel anxious, and that's how simple it is. So we're here to like get rid of the labels anxiety or any of these labels. It's like, no, you're feeling this natural human emotion. It's nothing that's too serious for you where you're like, well, I've got this disease. It's nothing like that at all. So that's a point that I want to put out there as well. And if anyone wants to reach out to me and have any questions or whatever, like, just send me an email at hello@mellows.com.au, or reach out on the Instagram, which is just drink.mellows.
Yeah.
We're always on the phone. You know, it's never going to go through a big multinational company. And yeah, if I can provide any support at all, I'd love to do so.
Yeah, that's incredible. So where can people, we're a stockist now, you know, so where can people find the
I knew
drink?
you were going to ask me this. I don't have my
No.
stockers list up.
Well, I guess not exact stockist, but you know, so what's the scope? Because I've not seen any
Yeah.
obviously locally in WA yet, but there might
Yeah.
be a few here, but obviously Australia only at the moment.
Australia only at the moment.
Yep.
We have been asked to expand to NZ, which will look like it will happen in the first or second quarter of next year.
Beautiful.
Again, been approached for the US, which is kind of exciting as well. But for us, we're really just wanting to make as much impact in our own backyard, you know. And I think between Australia and New Zealand, we can develop, like, even just in Australia, like such a beautiful community just there. So it's all about, yeah, the impact we can make in our own backyard. That's our focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, our stockists range from, you know, boutique sort of bottle shops to health food shops. So we're in like the Flannery's nationwide. We're in Whole Foods nationwide. We just signed on Spa supermarkets, which is awesome.
Well done.
We're in a selected amount of some of the IGAs as well. And then, yeah, then from there, we're actually in bathhouses as well. So City Cave, I don't know if you've heard of City Cave, but we're in a lot of the City Caves. They're a great business to work with. And then, yeah, a few other boutique bathhouses. We're in Soak Bathhouse that have a few locations around here. And yeah, started signing up some hotels as well. So
Incredible.
it's been busy.
Yeah.
And I'll provide a link as well so people can see the exact stockers. So we've got about 350, I think, at the moment, but that would go to 400 next month, which would be kind of cool. So we're a new business still, we're building, but again, it's about spreading the word, allowing everyone to try the product, but then making as much impact as we can in our own backyard. And just telling people it's fine to reach out, you know. We're just here to be authentically ourselves, basically, and express ourselves. And it's one thing, I think, when you grow up, it's like a lot of us lose the ways to be to be able to express ourselves basically, and it's just so important to keep that there. Doesn't matter what you do, you
Yeah.
know, you learn to do as much of that as possible.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I thank you for your work and service and purpose, and you will be a great success because of that, because you are driven by a very beautiful purpose. And I was saying to Ella, my clinic manager, I'm like, these because we've got a sauna, we've got infrared saunas and we've got hyperbarics and all sorts in the clinic. So we've got a little fridge down there. So I'm like, the mellows look really good down the fridge. So you might
I,
be able to count us as stockist as well then.
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your time today, Sam. And yeah, I wish you all the best and I'll be following along and maybe we have another, podcast in a year's time to have an update on what's happening with the whole company.
Love that. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
That's all right, my pleasure.